Welcome back, and this is Front and Center, your weekly show where we discuss the biggest political and policy issues in the Republic. And tonight it is a marriage of the two, and we'll start where we should, that is where politics and policy met, especially over the last 5 days, during which President William Ruto met or had a 5-day tour of the Western Kenya region. Of course, a big issue that has been there, which is both economic and political, has been the issue of the sugar belt in Western Kenya. He did issue a directive, a warning, a caution if you like, and of course we have seen the domino effect. Today, a billionaire and owner of West Kenya Sugar Company and two others in the counties of Bungoma and Busia, that is Jaswant Rai, withdrew cases that he had filed against the lease given for Mumias Sugar Company at the Court of Appeal, and of course in another court as well, bowing to pressure by the president. Let's listen in before we get into this to what President William Ruto said during his visit to Kakamega in the last 3 days ago. Listen.
Kesi watoe na wao wenyewe watoke. Nyinyi mnanielewa? Tunaelewana? Na nimewaambia mambo ni mangapi? Matatu. Wakitaka kuniletea kisirani, either wahame Kenya, ama nitawaweka jela, ama wasafiri waende mbinguni.
I am joined in studio tonight by economist Professor Fred Ogolla, political risk analyst Dismas Mokua, and joining us from what I've been calling the epicenter of the sugar battles, that is the county of Kakamega, is governance analyst Stereo Okumu. Gentlemen, good evening and thank you for joining us tonight. Prof, let me begin with you. Jaswant Rai has withdrawn the Mumias Sugar case. Was that the right move?
Well, move for who? This move doesn't benefit what's called justice, because everything in court needs to go through a justice process, because I find the threats by the president, if you like, a threat to access to justice, a threat to freedom of judiciary, a threat to the freedom of the bar, and also discouragement of any litigation, because why judiciary exists is that anybody who feels, let's say, unhappy with anything needs to take them to judiciary. So judiciary that's not a score for judiciary. Now, for the sugar company, if these feuds were causing sugar company not to operate, so maybe the sugar company has won. But to the family, the investors, an encouragement to anybody who want to invest in Kenya, again, this sends wrong signal, because, Ben, we can win battles at home. These domestic battles, we can win them. But remember, everybody is watching. As they look at the front page, they are saying, investor threatened to withdraw cases. Now, you are investor sitting in New York, you are sitting in London, you are sitting in Paris, and you are looking at the front page of the Nation. Where will you take your money? I'm sure that you'll redline Kenya, so people are redlining Kenya with all these threats. So you can win domestically, but actually lose in the global space. And then lastly, for me, does this help farmers? Because the farmers are the biggest losers here. Actually, the sugar companies have always been run at the benefit of brokers, at the disadvantage of the farmers, because sugar sellers like Quickmart, Carrefour, all these people, where do they get their sugar from? Which farm do they have? And how comes the farmers are paid after 90 days, yet you cannot take sugar from a factory in credit? So how comes all these things disadvantages the farmer? I can tell you it's a sad set of affairs, and this withdrawal process is just like which broker will take over from those brokers.
All right.
If we replace them by now taking this lease to the farmers, because where is the lease going to? Is the lease going to sit in the hands of William Ruto? Is it going to sit in the hands of government as a trustee on behalf of the farmers?
Okay.
So it is where the lease goes to that matters whether the farmers will benefit or not. This
has not been without its fair share of politics. What do you say to those who say that this is simply a matter of Uhuru-friendly sugar barons being kicked out to pave way for Ruto-friendly sugar barons, for lack of better words?
Ben, thanks for the opportunity. You'd recall that during the campaigns, Kenya Kwanza did tours across the nation, and they held country economic fora where the local leaderships identified their key priority areas, and Kenya Kwanza promised they would actually address those issues if they assume office. So President Ruto's visit to Western Kenya, in my understanding, was to address the priority areas of people in Western Kenya, and it's even captured in the coalition agreement between UDA, ANC, and Ford Kenya, and other political parties. So the farmers in Western Kenya identified one of their key priority areas outside roads was sugarcane farming. That they engage in sugarcane farming, but they don't seem to be beneficiaries of their sweat. And they said that there are a number of powerful persons with political connections, members of a cartel, who have frustrated their efforts. And Kenya Kwanza promised that as soon as they take office, they'll come back and dismantle those cartels. They'll come back and dismantle beneficiaries of state capture. And when you look at the figures are just amazing, and they talk for themselves. Actually, they're very loud when you place them on the scoreboard. For instance, Kenya has got 16 operational sugar millers. 16. Out of those, 4 are public sector, and the balance is private sector. Now, in the private sector, all of them, the one in the private sector, 12, all of them are profitable, 100% profitable. They return a good return on investment on their shareholders. On the other hand, the 4 which are public owned, they're always loss making, and all of them operate in the same environment. So now the question arises, how come sugar mills in the same environment, one which is run by the private sector makes a profit, and the other one makes a loss? And the losses are deliberate, and it's not as if there is a surplus of sugar in Kenya.
What do you mean deliberate, Dismas? You have to qualify that.
Yeah, deliberate, because if you're playing in the same field, same weather condition, same economic environment, same farmers, same soil acidity, how come one makes a profit and another one makes a loss? It would have been a bit different if, say, you are comparing a sugar mill in, say, Bungoma and another one in Narok. Because in Narok, understand, according to scientists and agronomists, their pH favors the sugar production. In fact, in Narok, you get 140 tons from an hectare, when in Bungoma you get 50%. So those figures are very loud, and they speak for themselves. And even when you look at the global figures, again, according to research and reliable sources, that our sugar consumption in Kenya is 790,000 metric tons, while in fact the actual demand is 1.16 million metric tons. So it means that Kenya always has a deficit. So how come, with a very high demand, these people still post losses? One would say that when you look at the private sector organizations, or rather private sector mills, they've got new technology, they are more efficient, they are more effective. But what stops the public sector millers from being more effective, from being more efficient? So it boils down to leadership of these mills, or management of these mills, and the powerful cartels that have decided to frustrate the Kenyan farmer and also frustrate the Kenyan consumer.
We'll get into the nitty-gritties of all this and whether or not Western Kenya is the place